Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for being part of this community and this group. When we started it a few months ago, we hoped that this would be ongoing and that these shiurim and these meetings would happen every few months. We originally thought we'd have our first shiur about 2 months later, and for whatever reason it didn't happen, so it's been longer than we planned, but I do see that people have still kept up their commitment, which is great. I wanted to just, because there are a few new people, explain how this came about, because it's very important to remember what we're doing here and why. So many years ago, I read a book, and I was around at the time where there was a woman in Israel who got very, very ill. She was 26 and 3 small children. She lived, I think, in Geula in Jerusalem, and she had a cough, and by the time she saw a doctor, they gave her a few weeks to live. And this was, of course, terrible, and she had these small kids, and people were calling her and saying, what can we do? We'd love to help you. And she said, I tell you what, if you want to help, please stop talking Lashon Hora. And in that merit, perhaps I will be cured or live longer. They gave her 3 weeks to live. That whole thing became a worldwide movement. And she prolonged her life for about 2.5 years after that. So what happened was that she asked quite a few people to stop talking Lashon Hora, and then she was invited as a guest speaker. Now, she went to America for a lot of her treatment, and she would literally fill stadiums with people where she would speak to them and beg people, please stop talking Lashon Hora. And this became a huge movement, and I was in Johannesburg at the time, and we were involved in it as well. Everybody, the whole world this is when this whole idea started, about really watching what you say and making a commitment for a few hours a day to not talk Lashon Hora, evil talk at all. Now, it was an incredible thing, because apparently even the day she had chemo, she would get up in the morning and go and talk to the stadium. And she was very, very, well, you can imagine her life was on the line. And she would talk. Her book is called A Narrow Bridge. It is available in the Bina Library, and it's worth reading, because she talks about this world is a narrow bridge. It's a narrow bridge between when our soul comes down into the world when we're born, and to when our soul is going to leave the world when we pass away. And when we walk along this narrow bridge, it's a very, very, it's not a very secure bridge. Things can happen all along, and we have to be aware of where our security comes from. And we have to be aware on this narrow bridge, the implications of what we do, particularly speech. Now, there is so much written about speech in the Torah that I wanted to just touch today on the healing power of speech, because a few of the parashas we've been reading in the last few weeks have been about this, which I'll explain, and also ER is the month of healing. So we speak about evil speech, gossip, slander, negative things that we say, and we know that we shouldn't say them. But often we don't emphasize enough the other side of it, the realization that it's not only what we hold back saying, but also watching what we do say. And I've noticed that Jody, and thank you, Jody, for putting up those beautiful sayings on the group. Often they are sayings about bring out the positive, say good things. So it's an art. It's not about just between 6 and 8, I'm not saying anything negative. It's about the rest of the day. How am I using my speech? And speech is huge. We say that God created the world with 10 utterances. Every time we speak, we can literally kill someone, or we can literally revive them. So if you think about it, there's an expression, she cut me dead. If you actually interrupt someone or put them down, you can literally cut them dead. You will feel like you cut off. You can destroy someone with your words. You can destroy a person getting a job. You might tell somebody something that they didn't need to know, that really, and person will go, oh, I don't want to employ them. You can destroy a person's opportunity to find a shidduch by saying something that shouldn't be said. Now, we're not talking about when you need to say something. Of course, if someone is a thief, you need to say, look, I wouldn't employ that person, or if someone's not suitable for a marriage for real reasons, but not for superficial reasons. One has to ask and find out exactly what you can and can't say. But besides the laws about that, you have to be aware that you can say something and destroy someone's reputation forever. And we live in a world where it is just, you know, it's all these tabloids, the way people criticize and put down, and the most disgusting things that people say about each other. It's just incredible. We live in a world, you know, sometimes I don't really watch these shows, but I've seen, you know, these shows, maybe even The Apprentice, where you fired or you're a loser or get out. You know, it's just awful the way people are spoken to, and there isn't anything, you know, you cut dead, you just knocked off, you just eliminated, Survivor, all these ones where people will say terrible things. Yes, I got kicked off, and as I say, I don't really watch them, but I have heard that it's about you push each other off and you say it publicly on TV for everyone to hear what it is you don't like. From a Jewish point of view, this is abhorrent. So these are things we have to be aware of not saying. Now, I heard a beautiful shir by Rabbi Ginsburg, and he was talking about the Parsha Kedoshim, which is actually what we just read this Shabbos. And in that Parsha, there are a lot of laws. I think it's one of the Parshas got the most halachas of the whole year. And so it actually says, do not speak evil, do not gossip, do not slander, do not say anything negative about other people. And then straight after that, and I just want to get the wording, it says, do not pass over the blood of others. And he says, what does that mean? You know, and why are the two put next to each other? And the reason, one of the explanations he gives is because the one thing is do not speak evil, but the other one is do not pass over the blood. And his explanation is to not ignore the humanity of the other person. And the way he explained it was, he said, do not be a reporter. And I thought this was fascinating because he was talking about when a reporter looks at something, they are just reporting. And I was just talking about the tabloid. You know, this is what we see, and we are just impartial, and we are just saying it as it is. And that, he would say, is lacking in empathy and is passing over the blood of someone. And it made me think of, I don't know if people know the story, and there's actually a movie now, I think it's called The Bang Bang Club. I don't know if it's an old or new movie, but it's about reporters and photographers that went into Soweto. I think around, I'm not sure which rights, maybe the 76 rights. You can see it, you can get hold of the movie, it's really worth watching. How they went into the townships and they captured a whole lot of things. And one of those photographers went into Sudan later on, and he took a photo that became iconic, and he won the Pulitzer Prize. And I'll remind you what the photo, if you remember it, was of a little girl dying, literally starving, and a vulture watching this dying child. And he captured this photo, and it went, in those days, whatever viral meant before the internet. It was in Time magazine and Life magazine and the New York Times. It was an incredible photo. He didn't even know his friend had submitted it, and he won this prize. But what happened was, when he went to New York, a lot of people and reporters asked him, what did you do for that child? Did you just watch her die? And the answer was, he did. He was so busy getting the right picture, and he was this reporter that Rabbi Ginsburg talks about, totally lacking empathy and noticing. He was more about getting the photo. And it's a very tragic story because a few years later, he actually took his own life, and they believe that's one of the reasons he couldn't live with that afterwards. But it's a question that was then raised of photographers, let's say, who go into terrible places and they don't help. They just take photos and they don't help people. Now, I'm not talking about photographers. I don't have an answer to these ethical questions. But what Rabbi Ginsburg is saying is we shouldn't be like that. If you see someone is struggling, not only should you not say something negative like, can you believe how much weight she's put on? Or can you believe how dirty her house is? Or the kind of things you just say to people. That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect is, where is your empathy? Where is your humanity? Where is you going, maybe she needs a bit of help with organization. Maybe I can drop her a meal and develop a friendship and talk to her. Maybe she's under stress and that's why she put on weight. Whatever it is, the two are just as important. Don't say anything negative, but also don't lose your humanity. Don't just judge people and look at them. But the whole thing is to connect with people. The whole thing is to really care about people. And when you care, you use your words to lift people up and never to cut them dead or destroy them. And also not just to be impartial and just give a description. We are human and we need to deeply care about each other. So I thought that was a beautiful insight. The second insight actually comes from a different parsha where the Rebbe has a sikha about Miriam. This is the parsha where Miriam gets sarai. She speaks Lashon Hora about her brother Moshe. Because of that, she gets sarais, which we call today leprosy. It's not leprosy as we think it is. No one really knows exactly what it is. But it was a skin condition that she had to go out of the camp for 7 days. That was the cure for it. She was actually isolated. And one of the things that happened is everybody waited for her before they moved on. But the question was, what did she do that was so wrong? Now, the thing about Miriam is she was Moshe's older sister. She had no bad feelings against her brother. She was the one that watched him when he was in the Nile. She was the one that ran home and got her mother to be the wet nurse for Moshe when Bacha took him. She was very involved in her brother's life. She was the older protective sister. And she actually wasn't being mean. She spoke to her other brother, Aaron, and what she was basically saying is she was concerned about her sister-in-law because Moshe had separated from Tzipporah because he needed to be in a state of holiness the whole time. And on her level, it was regarded as Lashon Hora to talk about her brother, and she got sarais and was separated. What the Rebbe says in his Sikha is the reason that it was such a severe thing is that we have been given speech to connect with others, not to separate from others. We have been given speech to bring people together or for us to communicate with others. Speech is for us to connect. So when we're with other people and we put them down, we are actually not able to connect. And even when we're sitting with a friend and we're running someone else down, it's not a real connection. That is using someone else's misfortune for us to have something to talk about. And that is why one of the most important tools is we must become interesting people and always have something important and interesting to say, so that we don't have the desire to always say something negative. We must be intelligent enough that we can say, oh, I learned this interesting thing this week. Oh, I went to a great shir. And if you do have to talk to somebody, it should be purely in a way of connecting. So my third point is a whole different way of looking at this that makes it complete. And it's like this. The one way, which we will continue, and Jody will talk to us about it in a minute, is making commitments to really guard our tongue and be very careful about what we say and to be aware of the negative things that we actually say. But the other side of it is to really be aware of our attitude to other people and to know that we need to develop loving our fellow Jew. We need to develop the ability to be empathic to other people, to recognize their godliness. The more we work on loving somebody, loving their essence, even if we don't love everything about them, the less we will talk Lashon Hora. So the two together, the one is, if you like, developing a different worldview, that if you love somebody, you're not going to talk badly about them. Even if you just love their humanity, they're dirty or smelly or there's something about them that you don't like, doesn't matter. You connect to them as one of God's creations. You work on yourself to be empathic, to reach out, to care about them, not to be the photographer that just looks, but going, okay, I need to do something. I want to be involved. You develop your love for the other person, and you develop the awe of what you're going to say. Love and awe is how we serve Hashem. So there are two aspects of guarding our speech. The one is really being meticulous about not saying the wrong thing, but the other is developing a love and a language where we can lift up other people and where we can see the good in other people and where we don't even feel or think anything negative to start with. So those were the thoughts that I wanted to share with tonight. I'm now going to switch off this recording